Ever get that feeling like you're just stuck, in a loop?
Oh, definitely. The same kind of emotional reactions, maybe the same habits.
Yeah, or even life circumstances that just won't budge. It's like being on a hamster wheel sometimes.
It really is.
But what if the way out wasn't about pushing harder within that loop?
What if it was something else?
Exactly. What if it involves understanding something really deep about how reality itself works? It sounds a bit wild, but maybe even looking towards quantum science.
Ah, yes. It's fascinating stuff because it really shakes up our basic ideas of what's real.
How so?
Well, think about this. Most of the universe, like 99.9% or something crazy like that, is dark energy and dark matter,
Hmm.
stuff we can't even see directly.
Right, the stuff we can see is just a tiny fraction.
A tiny fraction. And even that stuff, atoms, particles,
Yeah.
it behaves incredibly strangely down to the quantum level.
Strange how.
Like before we observe them, these tiny bits of reality aren't really solid things in one place. They're more like waves of possibility,
Yeah.
potential.
Okay, wait. So things aren't really there in a definite way until we look at them, interact with them.
Kind of, yeah. It's bizarre. They exist as potentials, as probabilities, and our observation seems to play a role in them becoming, well, actual.
That's mind-boggling. It almost sounds like reality is waiting for us.
It certainly opens up some profound questions,
Mm.
and it leads some thinkers to wonder, could consciousness be more fundamental than we usually think?
You mean instead of consciousness just popping out of a physical brain?
Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe consciousness is the ground floor of everything, the basic reality.
And what we perceive as the physical world as matter.
Is maybe an interpretation within that consciousness, like patterns or experiences happening inside it.
Wow. So this touches on that whole hard problem of consciousness thing. Like, how does subjective experience even arise?
Exactly. And some even speculate, could our shared reality be like a kind of cosmic dream? Or maybe even a simulation based on information?
Okay, so if reality is maybe more flexible, more possibility-based, and consciousness is key,
Then maybe those patterns we feel stuck in aren't as fixed as they seem.
right, and that's what we want to explore today, isn't it? How this kind of quantum view and the idea of consciousness being primary might give us some real insights, not equations, but insights into breaking free, especially from emotional patterns, life limitations.
Absolutely. Let's start with how we even perceive the world in the first place, because it's not like we're just passively recording what's out there.
No, it feels much more active than that.
It's heavily, heavily filtered, conditioned, really,
Hmm.
right from when we're tiny.
By what? Like our upbringing?
Everything. Our family's financial situation, our culture, the emotional vibe in our home, religious or spiritual beliefs we inherited. All of it acts like a set of lenses
Lenses that shape what we see.
and how we interpret it. There was that incredible research with kittens. Did you ever hear about that?
With the stripes. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So they raised kittens in environments where they only saw vertical lines
Hmm.
or only horizontal lines, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And when these kittens grew up, their brains had literally wired themselves so they could only perceive lines in the orientation they were exposed to. If they grew up with vertical lines, they couldn't really see horizontal ones, and vice versa. They bump into things.
Wow. So our early experiences literally build our perceptual reality.
It's a stark example, but yeah, it shows how deeply experience shapes what we're even capable of noticing or understanding. We tend to see what fits our existing beliefs,
So it's less believing what we see and more.
seeing what we believe. Our ingrained patterns of thought, our assumptions, they kind of filter reality for us.
And if reality at its core is, like you said, potentially full of infinite possibilities.
Then our conditioning acts like this narrow filter, only letting through what matches our settings, so to speak.
Yeah.
We experience a tiny slice of what might actually be available.
Okay. So if perception is conditioned, how does the idea of consciousness being fundamental change things? What does that actually mean for our experience?
Well, one way to think about it is that all our experiences, sensations, thoughts, feelings, images, aren't just random events happening to us, or even just in our heads.
Where are they then?
They can be seen as modulations of consciousness itself, like waves on an ocean, consciousness experiencing itself in different forms.
So a feeling isn't located just here in my chest,
But
necessarily.
it's experienced within the field of consciousness. It doesn't have a precise address in space-time in the way a physical object seems to. It exists within awareness.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think I get that. So if my patterns, my stuck feelings, are rooted in these experiences within consciousness,
Then maybe shifts in our consciousness, in our awareness itself, could lead to shifts in those patterns and how we experience reality.
how might we access that? Through something like intuition.
Intuition is a great example. It often feels like a deeper knowing, right?
Right.
Something beyond just logical deduction.
Yeah, like a gut feeling, or just knowing something without knowing how you know.
Exactly. And perhaps that's a way we tap into that wider field of possibilities, that deeper level of consciousness. So I might even call it accessing the mind of God or universal intelligence.
And creativity, too, especially radical creativity.
Oh, absolutely. True creativity isn't just rearranging known things, it's disruptive. It breaks existing algorithms, brings something genuinely new into being.
Like it comes from somewhere else.
It bursts through patterns. In a way, that's exactly what we're talking about doing with our own personal limitations, breaking free from the predictable script.
Mm.
Here's a little thing to try, just for a second. Ask yourself, what will my very next thought be?
Okay.
Can you predict it?
No, not really. It just sort of appears.
Right. It arises seemingly out of nowhere, spontaneously, from that source of, well, pure potential,
Yeah.
pure consciousness. It's unpredictable.
That points towards needing to quiet down the usual mental chatter, doesn't it? To even notice that space where thoughts arise from.
Precisely. Practices like meditation or even certain aspects of yoga are really about cultivating that stillness and awareness.
Yoga postures as seats of awareness.
Right.
I like that. Not just exercise.
Exactly. It's about becoming present, even just pausing. Like, right now, are you enjoying this conversation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, but notice that tiny gap between my question and your conscious answer. That little pause, that momentary quiet.
Yeah, there was a little space there, like a
Okay.
silence.
That's it. That's a taste of presence, a moment of stillness beyond the constant flow of thoughts. Getting quiet allows us to access that deeper level, that awareness underneath the surface noise. That's where the possibilities are.
Okay, this is tying together. Intuition, creativity, stillness. These seem like ways to access something deeper. What about love, connection? Where does that fit?
Love. This is where it gets really profound, I think. You know, in quantum physics, there's this idea entanglement or non-local correlation.
Where two particles are linked, no matter how far apart, what happens to one instantly affects the other.
Exactly. It's a mind-bending concept.
Mm.
Now, think about the experience of deep love or connection.
That feeling of being totally in sync, knowing what the other person is thinking or feeling, almost.
Yes. At its core, maybe love is a state of oneness, where the separation between me and you starts to dissolve, an interconnectedness that doesn't seem bound by physical distance.
There's so much anecdotal stuff around that, isn't there? Like people knowing when a loved one far away is in trouble. Or
Or even simpler things, like studies showing some dogs seem to know when their owner's on the way home, even at unusual times.
it makes you wonder, that deep feeling, I love my mother so much, maybe there's a real connection there beyond just biology.
It points to a fundamental interconnectedness. And think about loving relationships, or even a therapeutic relationship.
Mhm.
There's this process, sometimes called limbic resonance.
Limbic, like the emotional brain.
Yes. First, there's a kind of tuning in, an emotional resonance.
Mm.
Then, one person's calm, loving state can actually help regulate the other person's state, this limbic regulation. And sustained positive interaction, attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance, can literally help rewire the brain. That's limbic revision. It can help heal old emotional wounds, shift negative patterns.
So kindness, love, positive attention, they're not just nice feelings. They can actually reshape us, physically change our brains away from negativity.
That's a potential.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a tangible way connection can foster change and healing. Love is a transformative force.
Wow. Okay. So accessing this deeper level, intuition, stillness, love, creativity, it sounds like it requires moving beyond just our everyday ego, our usual sense of me.
That often seems to be key, yes. It's less about, I'm going to manifest this through sheer willpower,
And more about,
more about aligning with a higher intention, a deeper purpose perhaps, tapping into that source of possibility rather than trying to force things from a limited sense of self.
that resonates. Like when you're really absorbed in something meaningful, things sometimes just click into place. Synchronicities happen.
Exactly. And so talk about this in terms of vibration. The idea that our thoughts, emotions, even our bodies are patterns of energy, vibrations,
And shifting our internal state, our vibe.
can influence the kinds of experiences we attract or resonate with externally, changing the inner, can change the outer.
This is all fascinating, really powerful stuff, but for someone listening right now, feeling stuck, wanting to break a pattern, where do they start? What's a practical first step?
It might sound almost too simple, but honestly, the most fundamental starting point is often learning how to breathe consciously and starting to pay attention to your body.
Breathing and noticing.
Yes,
Yeah.
because so many of our ingrained patterns are rooted in reactivity, automatic, unconscious reactions.
Fight or flight, maybe.
Yeah,
Or just habitual emotional responses.
exactly. Focusing on your breath anchors you in the present. Paying attention to bodily sensations does the same. It creates a pause between stimulus and response. It quiets the mental noise.
So it moves you out of that automatic pilot mode.
It creates space. Space to notice, space to choose differently, space to perceive those quieter signals, maybe from intuition, from that deeper awareness we talked about.
And this applies regardless of the pattern, whether it's about healing or money or relationships or just understanding yourself better.
Pretty much. The entry point is often the same. Slow down, become present to your inner state, especially your body. Get out of your head for a bit.
So the goal isn't necessarily to become psychic overnight or anything.
No, not necessarily, although who knows what potential lies there. The immediate goal is simply to get quiet and open. That quietness itself fuels creativity, sharpens intuition, and allows new possibilities to filter through that conditioning we discussed.
Hey, so let me try and wrap this up. What we've explored suggests that reality itself, down at the quantum level, is maybe more like a field of potential,
Yeah.
and consciousness plays a crucial role in how that potential becomes our experience.
Right. And this means those patterns we feel locked into, they may not be as solid or permanent as they feel.
Because they're rooted in consciousness and perception, which can shift.
Exactly. And accessing deeper awareness through stillness, presence, focusing on breath and body seems to be a key way to start shifting things, to tap into that field of possibility and connection.
It's like the building blocks aren't fixed until we interact with them. Maybe focusing so hard on our limitations is part of what keeps them solid.
That's a really powerful way to put it. And the potential for change starts with that simple act. Bring your attention back to your breath right now. Notice the feeling of being in your body.
In that stillness, that's where the space for something new opens up.
That's where new possibilities can start to emerge.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If you're listening, maybe consider one area in your life where you feel stuck. Just one. And just wonder, what might shift if you started looking at it from this perspective? From infinite possibility and the power of your own awareness.
See you soon.